You put down your phone, the screen goes dark, and instead of feeling relaxed, you feel worse. Not dramatically worse, not crying on the floor worse, just that quiet, hollow kind of worse, like something was subtly taken from you and you cannot quite name what it was. You scroll, you pause, you scroll again, and by the time you stop, there is this low-level hum of unease in your chest that was not there before. Most people call it comparison, and yes, comparison is part of it. But what is actually happening in your nervous system when you open Instagram, TikTok, or Pinterest is far more complicated, far more ancient, and far more dangerous to your mental health than anyone is telling you. This video is not about telling you to delete your apps. It is not a lecture. It is an explanation. Because once you understand what your brain is actually doing when you scroll, you will never look at that anxiety the same way again. And more importantly, you will stop blaming yourself for feeling it. Let us start at the beginning. Not the beginning of social media, but the beginning of you. Biologically speaking, you are a social animal who evolved inside small tribes. Your ancestors lived in groups of roughly 50 to 150 people, and within those groups, your social standing was not just about pride or ego, it was directly tied to your survival. If you were liked, you were protected. If you were trusted, you were fed. If you were valued by the group, you had access to resources, partnership, safety. If you were rejected, isolated, or deemed less than, you were exposed to real physical danger. Your nervous system learned this lesson so well over hundreds of thousands of years that it wired social threat and physical threat together in the same neural circuits. Feeling left out activates the same brain regions as feeling physical pain. This is not a metaphor. Neuroimaging studies have confirmed it. Social rejection lights up the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same area that registers bodily injury. Now take that ancient nervous system built to process the social dynamics of 50 to 150 people you actually knew and expose it to a feed of thousands of strangers, curated highlight reels, algorithmically optimized images, and a constant stream of social signals, and you begin to understand why scrolling does not feel neutral. Your brain was never designed for this volume of social comparison data. It does not have a setting for, these are strangers whose lives are professionally staged. It reads every image, every caption, every follower count as social information, and it responds accordingly, scanning for threats, calculating your rank, assessing your position. Imagine you are sitting alone on a Saturday night and you open your phone. You see a woman you vaguely know from college, laughing at a rooftop dinner with 10 beautiful people. You see a creator you follow posting a photo from a villa in Santorini. You see a woman who looks uncannily like you, same age, same background, but she just announced a 6-figure business launch. In the space of 3 minutes, your nervous system has been exposed to what it interprets as social flight data dozens of times over. You are not consciously thinking, I am failing, but your brain is running rapid, automatic calculations in the background, and the output of those calculations is that low, creeping anxiety you feel when you put the phone down. This is called social comparison theory, first introduced by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1954. Festinger argued that humans have a fundamental drive to evaluate their own opinions and abilities, and that in the absence of objective measures, they compare themselves to others. What Festinger could not have anticipated was the digital environment we would eventually build, one that makes constant, involuntary social comparison not just possible, but virtually inescapable. Every time you open an app, you are handed a curated ranking system. Metrics are everywhere. Follower counts, like counts, comment volumes, view rates. Your brain reads these not as abstract numbers, but as social proof, as signals of who matters and who does not. And whether you want it to or not, it places you somewhere on that invisible hierarchy. But here is where it gets more specific to your experience as a woman, because the research is very clear that social comparison on social media does not hit everyone equally. Women, and particularly young women, experience higher rates of anxiety and depression linked to social media use than men do. The reasons are multiple, and they matter. First, The content that women are most algorithmically served is appearance-based. Studies show that women's feeds are disproportionately populated with images that center physical appearance, body shape, skin, beauty, fitness, and style, far more than men's feeds are. This means the comparison data your brain is processing is almost always body-related, which activates a particularly potent form of social threat called mate value competition. Evolutionary psychologists have documented that women's self-evaluation is heavily tied to perceived attractiveness, not because women are shallow, but because attractiveness was historically a critical variable in securing protection, partnership, and resources. When your brain registers that someone else is more beautiful, more stylish, or more physically desirable than you, it does not just generate mild envy, it generates threat. It tells your nervous system that you are at a disadvantage, that your position in the social hierarchy is at risk. Consider a woman named Claire. She is 32, she has a stable job, a healthy relationship, a life that, on paper, is genuinely good. But every morning, before she gets out of bed, she spends 20 to 40 minutes scrolling. And every morning, without fail, she arrives at work feeling deflated. She could not explain why for a long time. She told herself she was just tired, or that work stress was getting to her, or that her relationship was not exciting enough. She cycled through explanations that all pointed back to her own life as the problem. She was not making the connection between those 20 to 40 morning minutes and the low-grade fog she walked through for the rest of the day. When Claire finally started tracking her mood, she realized that on the days she did not scroll in the morning, she felt noticeably clearer, more confident, more present. The anxiety was not coming from her life. It was being installed before her day had even begun. This is the part that most conversations about social media skip. The comparison is not just making you feel bad about what you have, it is actively reshaping how you perceive what you have. Psychologists call this contrast effect. When you view something of very high quality, ordinary things seem worse by comparison, even when nothing about them has actually changed. A meal you would have enjoyed completely suddenly seems less satisfying after you have seen a video of an elaborate 5-course dinner. A relationship that felt loving and secure before you watched a reel of a man surprising his girlfriend with a weekend trip now feels quietly insufficient. Nothing changed in your actual life, but your perception was recalibrated by the contrast, and the emotional impact is real and immediate. This is why the anxiety you feel after scrolling is not just about comparison in the abstract sense of, "I wish I had what she has." It is about the systematic degradation of your baseline satisfaction. Your nervous system recalibrates its sense of normal every single time it is exposed to curated excellence, and social media is an uninterrupted stream of curated excellence. Beautiful homes, extraordinary bodies, perfect relationships, thriving businesses, lives that appear to contain none of the mundane friction that makes up most of real human existence. After enough exposure, your real life begins to register as deficient, not dramatically, not in a way you could clearly articulate to a therapist, but in that subtle, persistent way that makes you feel like something is missing without knowing what. Moving deeper into the neuroscience of this, there is another mechanism at work that rarely gets named: the dopamine interruption loop. Social media platforms are engineered to exploit your brain's reward prediction system. Each time you open an app, you are essentially pulling a slot machine lever. Sometimes you find something that genuinely delights you, a funny video, a beautiful image, something that makes you feel connected. Sometimes you find something neutral. Sometimes you find something that makes you feel bad. But the unpredictability of the reward is precisely what makes the behavior compulsive. Your dopaminergic system is designed to fire in response to unexpected positive stimuli. Novelty and unpredictability trigger dopamine surges more reliably than predictable rewards do. This means that every scroll is a dopamine-seeking behavior, and your brain keeps scrolling not because it is finding satisfaction, but because it is always anticipating the next potential reward. The problem is that most of what you find is not a reward in any meaningful sense. Most of what you find is neutral to negative social comparison data, content designed to provoke anxiety, anger, or envy, because those emotional states drive engagement. Your brain is still doing the dopamine dance, still seeking and seeking, but it is being fed stimulation that simultaneously activates threat circuitry and leaves the reward system unsatisfied. You scroll until you are overstimulated and undernourished at the same time. You put down your phone not because you found what you were looking for, but because your system finally saturated. And you carry that mix of overstimulation and subtle threat activation with you into the rest of your day. There is also something happening specifically to women that goes beyond individual psychology and enters the territory of social identity. Women are, in ways both explicit and implicit, socialized to monitor their social standing with careful attention. Research in developmental psychology shows that girls begin to engage in social comparison behavior earlier and more intensely than boys, and this gap does not close with age. Women are socialized to be attuned to group harmony, to social hierarchies, to the feelings and evaluations of others. This heightened social attunement, while it is genuinely a form of intelligence and relational skill, also means that the social signal processing your brain is doing when you scroll is more active, more detailed, and more emotionally loaded than the equivalent experience for many men. You are not overreacting. You are operating with a nervous system that was calibrated, both biologically and socially, to take social information seriously. The digital environment is simply flooding that calibrated system with far more data than it was ever meant to process. Think about a woman named Mia. She has a healthy sense of self in most areas of her life. She is confident at work. She has good friendships. She genuinely likes who she is. But she follows 300 accounts on Instagram, and somewhere in that mix are about 40 accounts whose content reliably makes her feel inadequate. She does not unfollow them. When she asks herself why, she says she finds them inspiring. But inspiration and inadequacy often live uncomfortably close together in the female psyche. And what Mia describes as aspirational feels, when she is honest, more like self-punishment. She keeps exposing herself to images that reinforce the idea that she is not enough, not thin enough, not stylish enough, not successful enough. And she calls it motivation because she has been taught that wanting more is the virtuous response to seeing more. This is a crucial distinction. There is a difference between content that genuinely expands your sense of what is possible and content that activates your deficiency response while disguising itself as inspiration. The test is simple. After you look at it, do you feel energized or diminished? Do you feel like you want to go create something, or do you feel like you want to hide? Your body knows the difference, even when your mind is still constructing the narrative that this is good for you. Beyond individual experience, there is a collective dimension to this anxiety that is worth naming. Women are scrolling in a landscape that has been deliberately designed to profit from their insecurity. The beauty industry, the wellness industry, the fitness industry, the fashion industry. All of these sectors have powerful financial incentives to ensure that women never feel fully enough exactly as they are. Social media platforms do not create this dynamic from scratch, but they amplify it at a scale and speed that is genuinely unprecedented. The algorithm does not care whether the content it is serving you is making you feel good or bad about yourself. It cares about whether it is keeping you on the platform. And content that generates anxiety, envy, or inadequacy keeps you scrolling far more effectively than content that makes you feel genuinely satisfied and complete. This means that part of what you are experiencing when you feel that post-scroll anxiety is not just a personal psychological response. It is the intended output of a system that was designed to generate it. Your anxiety is, in a sense, the product. Your dissatisfaction is the engine that keeps the whole machine running. Understanding this does not immediately dissolve the feeling, but it does something important. It removes the blame from you. The anxiety you feel is not evidence of your weakness or your vanity or your inadequacy. It is evidence that you have a functional nervous system that is responding predictably to a set of conditions it was never designed to navigate. This brings us to something that does not get discussed enough, which is the cumulative neurological impact of sustained, chronic, low-level threat activation. Your nervous system has two primary operating modes. There is the parasympathetic state, sometimes called rest and digest, where you feel safe, calm, curious, and connected. And there is the sympathetic state, sometimes called fight or flight, where your body is mobilized to respond to threat. Acute threat, like a car accident or a confrontation, activates the sympathetic system sharply, and then when the threat passes, the system returns to baseline. But chronic, low-level threat, the kind of subtle, ambient anxiety generated by constant social comparison, keeps the sympathetic system gently activated for sustained periods of time. Over weeks and months and years, this chronic low-level activation rewires your baseline state. What should feel neutral starts to feel anxious. What should feel safe starts to feel precarious. Your window of tolerance narrows, meaning you become more easily dysregulated by minor stressors, less able to access genuine calm and presence, more prone to rumination and social vigilance. Many women who describe themselves as naturally anxious people are not naturally anxious at all. They are women whose nervous systems have been kept in a low-level state of social threat activation by years of curated digital comparison. The anxiety feels like a personality trait, something intrinsic to who they are, because it has been there so consistently that they cannot remember a baseline before it. But it is not intrinsic, it is learned, it is environmental, and that means it can change. The path out of this is not as simple as deleting your apps, though that is a legitimate choice and one that genuinely helps many people. The path begins with understanding, and understanding requires seeing clearly what was actually happening. Every time you felt that hollow anxiety after scrolling, your ancient nervous system was doing exactly what it was built to do. It was scanning for social threats, assessing your rank, calculating your safety in the group, and responding to data that it could not distinguish from real social reality. You were not being irrational, you were being human. A human navigating a digital landscape that was built to exploit the most fundamental and vulnerable parts of your neurobiology. The awareness itself is protective. When you feel that post-scroll unease begin to rise, and you can name it, I know what this is. This is my threat detection system responding to curated comparison data in a social environment that was engineered to keep me activated. Something shifts. The feeling does not disappear, but it loses its grip. It stops being evidence about you and becomes information about the environment you were just in. That is a meaningful distinction. Evidence about you requires a response, requires you to change, improve, shrink, compete. Information about the environment requires something different. It requires a choice about whether you want to keep inhabiting that environment in the same way. You are not broken because scrolling makes you feel anxious. You are awake. And the fact that you are here, asking these questions, trying to understand what is actually happening to you, rather than just enduring it, that matters more than you probably realize right now. The first video in this series was about naming the problem clearly. What comes next goes deeper, because once you understand the threat, you can start to dismantle it. And what you build in its place, a relationship with your identity, your worth, your presence, that is genuinely yours and not assembled from someone else's highlight reel, that is where the real power begins. If this video described something you recognize in your own life, leave the word scroll in the comments. Just that one word tells me that you are ready to go deeper, and it helps this video reach the women who need it most. Subscribe if you want to follow this series, because every video builds on the last, and where we are going next is somewhere that most creators are not willing to take you.